Okay, so today we're going to be talking about solving radical equations. So remember that radicals is just a big word for square roots. And so what you need to remember is that when we solve equations, we always use inverse operations. So when we're solving, you're going to have to think about what is the inverse of a radical. So remember that squaring is the inverse of a square root. So the first example, just kind of the simplest example you can have, if you have the square root of x equals 5. The way you're going to undo the square root is that you are going to square both sides. So you can see here that I'm squaring what's in here. Sometimes you can even put parentheses so you can actually see that you're squaring it, but with or without parentheses, it's the exact same thing. So you would say that that cancels out because the square root of x squared just gives you x, and then you do 5 squared, which gives you 25. Remember, the great thing about solving equations is you can always plug your answer back in to see if you have the right answer. So I can put 25 back in here and say the square root of 25 does equal 5, so I know that my equation was correct. Another example, you can see the original equation here says 4 plus the square root of 2x equals 10. So before I start taking the square of the side, I need to make sure that I get rid of anything that's not under a radical. So therefore I'm going to subtract 4 first, so that I can move this over here, and now I see that I have 6. So once I have 6 here, then what I'm going to do is take the square root, or take the square of both sides. Okay, so now I can see that the square root and the square cancel each other out, so I only have 2x on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side I have 36. And then of course I divide by 2, and I get 18. So it's really important that you remember, if there's anything on the same side as the radical, you need to actually get rid of that first before you start solving. And I can always plug this back in, plug 18 in there. I see 2 times 18 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6, plus 4 does indeed give me 10. All right, so go ahead and write down this first example and then pause the video and try that on your own. All right, welcome back. So hopefully you remembered that you're going to square both sides. So once I square the left side, I'm left with 4x plus 2 equals 36.
Wait, Miss Perso, how come you didn't subtract the 2 first? Because you said before that you have to subtract first.
That's a great question. Think of the radical as a grouping symbol. It's just like parentheses. So anytime something is inside of there, you can't just take it out of there. So it's kind of stuck inside of there.
Oh, whereas that other one was outside the radical symbol.
Exactly. So in example C, you're going to get one that's outside of the radical. So if it's outside of the radical, you can get rid of it. But if it's inside the radical, it's kind of stuck there until we get the radical out of there.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to subtract 2. And I get 34 equals 4x, and I divide by 4. So I see that I get 34/4 as my answer, which can be simplified. So I can simplify that to 17 over 2, or I could say 8.5. All right, so moving on to the next one, go ahead and pause the video. You see that there are radicals on both sides, but you're going to do the same exact thing and begin by squaring both sides. All right, welcome back. So you square both sides, and now that leaves me with 3x minus 7 equals 2, and now I just have a simple two-step equation. So I add 7, divide by 3, and I find out that x equals 3. So hopefully you got that one correct. All right, moving on to the third example, go ahead and pause the video and try the third one. All right, welcome back. So here we go. Now, remember what Miss Achilles was just telling you here. Since it's not part of the radical, I need to get rid of it before I start taking the square. So I can add 6, and now I'm left with the square root of 5x equals 5. At that point, I'm going to square both sides. So I square the left, I square the right, I get 5x equals 25, so I can see that x equals 5. And remember, I can always plug that back in to check. So 5 times 5 is 25. The square root of 25 is 5. 5 minus 6 is indeed -1, so I can see that my answer is correct. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time.
Bye!